Hello and welcome to Channel 17's Live at 525, our nightly news and public affairs program. I'm Matt Kelly. On tonight's show, our inauguration of ECOS in Action. It's a semi-monthly show every 2 months, and it's a collaboration between CCRPC, the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, and its many partners. And we're joined tonight by Charlie Baker. He is Executive Director of the CCRPC, and also by Martha Maxim. She's Executive Director of the Chittenden County United Way. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
A reminder that this is a live call-in show, and you are invited to dial in with your questions about the ECOS project, what it means, and the implications for the residents of Chittenden County. Charlie, why don't you start us off and let us know about the program and what we can expect?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us. Well, to really start off, the ECOS is really just about our future. And so we started a conversation about 2 years ago about the future of Chittenden County. What are the issues that are confronting us? What concerns do we have about the future? Also, what's going well? And really, what should be done to make Chittenden County a better place in the future? And I think one of the things early that we talked about was just change. And just the inevitability of change, whether we're getting older every day, or we change jobs, or we change where we live, or new people move here. So we're going to change in Chittenden County, and we're really trying to get ahead of that and talk about how we best do that. And if you don't mind, let me show a video that kind of introduces that concept.
Great. Wow, Charlie, a great video. 90 seconds, it really sums it up pretty quickly. And I understand that the ECOS project really developed 8 key strategies here that were featured in that video. Why don't you share those with us?
Yeah, thank you. And let me make sure I get to the right slide here. Excuse me. So, and underlying this, and we developed 8 strategies, should really start off about the partnership and who this was that did this. We really tried to have a lot of community engagement, and that largely meant with partner organizations like United Way, UVM, Fletcher Allen, the Chamber of Commerce,
Greater Business Industrial or Greater Burlington Industrial Corporation as well.
GBIC, all the municipalities, the school districts, state agencies.
Because each one of them will be impacted here.
Well, and really all of those organizations, and are all many of them are public. Agencies or nonprofits that are all making investments in our future, whether it's people or roads. And so we really wanted to work together. And so a lot of what we did was look at the work that had been done. So we looked at 60 planning documents, all the towns, different agencies, other things we'd done. And we really tried to create more alignment. So one of the issues I think that we should really start off with is everybody had too long of a to-do list. So could we bring focus? And so these 8 strategies are really the attempt to bring focus. So the first strategy is really about our jobs and economy. The second one was concentrating development, and that was really a big one for us in terms of what we do, working with the municipalities about where we develop and all the implications that that has. And then water quality and safety. Of course, we were having this conversation right after Irene.
All right.
And so it wasn't just water quality in Lake Champlain, but also the danger that water can represent. The working lands and our agricultural heritage, health and safety, public safety there, education, and then some that are kind of cross-cutting was how do we form structures that are more effective and don't cost more money, which was a really big issue. I think when we started this off, was like we can't do. There's no more money to do more things. We really need to be more effective in how we're investing our current resources, and so that's the seventh one. And then equity, which is we are getting more diverse in our county, and so that really came up, and it's starting changes that we really haven't had to deal with before. And I think at least as I look at it and look around the country, we're still pretty early in those conversations in this community, certainly in Vermont. But it's going to have a big impact in how we address the equity issues and make sure all the boats are floated with the rising tide.
Wow.
And we don't create more disparities in our community. Really an important issue that I don't want to forget. But.
So now I understand that you sought a lot of public input on this project, and the public comment period has ended, and in fact the ECOS plan was adopted last night at your annual meeting. Is that correct?
Just coincidence. We had our annual board meeting last night and adopted the plan, and it's our regional plan, which is a state requirement that we have as a regional planning commission, and it's also our regional transportation plan, which is a federal requirement because we're an urbanized area. And it's our economic development strategy, and actually GBIC, which thank you for mentioning earlier, will be meeting next week to adopt the economic portion. But it's all one plan document, which it used to be three, done separately, separate times.
And of course now the hard work begins of trying to implement it.
And that really is the focus of this series, is to really start talking about what is happening as we work on implementing actions, and a lot about how we're doing it together. And more effectively than maybe we've done things in the past.
Well, Martha, let's bring you in on the conversation here as a partner in this partnership, if you will. You see the social impacts that these changes may impact residents. So can you talk about how these things are related from your perspective, both economically and the impact on communities?
Sure. Happy to. Thanks for having me. It's interesting because as we began working on ECOS, it really brought me back to a project that we had started in the community back in 1996 called the Champlain Initiative, which I think was the 20th century version of what ECOS is today. And we really, that was a plan that said if we want to have a healthy community, you have to have a healthy economic sector, healthy environment, and social health and well-being. All of those three interconnect in some way. So when we started talking about ECOS, there's a huge connection between the social health and well-being of our communities and the economic vitality, the ability for people to get jobs that pay a wage that they can support their families, that we have an environment, clean water, clean air, people are safe, we have the ability to walk and recreate, and so it was a really interesting for us to be able to, at United Way, listen and learn sort of what the priorities of ECOS were and recognize how aligned they were with the priorities that we have at United Way, which were around education, income, financial stability, jobs, and health. And it was also interesting because I had presented at the Chamber's Regional Affairs Committee, and they had 3 summer study committees that were on education, income, and health. ECOS was aligning a lot around education, income, and health. Those are our priorities, and it was just fascinating to see how what's keeping us all up at night really seems to align a lot around that.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, because initially, I'm not sure that it looks like social is aligned with these development components.
And it absolutely is. I mean, we need people to be able to get good jobs, have the education that they need to get good jobs, that pay a living wage, access to health care. All of this is so connected. Transportation, things like that. So it's really, it's interesting. Yeah.
Well, we have a caller here, so we'll go to the phones here and hear what our caller has to say. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, just a quick question on how ECOS in Action can help solve the issues of some of the major Burlington problems, Burlington telecom, infrastructure, deteriorating road conditions, deteriorating bike path. Basically, waterfront really needs some repair in many areas. How is ECOS in Action working towards solving those very critical issues?
Wow, very good question. Thank you for calling in here. And I want to actually put it in context here in a little bit too, Charlie. Without raising money or taxes, I think as you initially stated here, the money pool is limited, and this plan actually kind of examined that, and you'd said, how do we do this without, in a sense, having more money?
Yeah, and and I say that it was kind of something we started with, but then when we really look at things, we are also seeing if we can get more money, we're going to do that. So for instance, like the bike path, I think is a great example where I think we're really supporting the city, and that's a primary. It's not just a recreation bike path. It's an economic driver
brings
of tourism, and it's not just an issue for the city of Burlington. South Burlington and Colchester, and we really care about the whole regional bike network. So one of the things that we do with this is really build the foundation so that we are more competitive for any federal grants that may become available. So I know the city applied last year for a grant. It wasn't successful. They're now in the process of doing it now, and we will be supporting them in doing that. So that was a lot of what we were trying to do in ECOS is kind of build support around some of those key issues. And infrastructure maintenance is one of those foundation issues. And so as we talked about transportation investments, we really spent more time looking at, sorry, I should talk to the caller too, but about what's the best way to prioritize those investments. And largely we came to the conclusion we can't afford to build new roads.
Right.
Of course, the governor, we changed tracks on the CIRC, so we're not building the CIRC now, but we are making a lot of investments in the current system, most of them outside Burlington, but this philosophically is we're kind of making better use of the resources we do have to improve the system we have. We may not build a new system, but we're going to make improvements.
Go ahead.
Well, I just think that's a very important point. And one of the things that I think having this plan in place and having the buy-in from all of the partners is that you've really set forth the priorities so that it's not only about new money, but how do we spend the existing money that we have to address these priorities? I think it's helped all of us really who have some resources to invest to say, we bought in, we signed off on this shared collective plan, and so we have an obligation, I think, to try to collectively really invest the resources we do have to make this plan a reality. So I don't think it's only new money. I think we have to think about how we use what we have.
Yeah. And just if I can follow up on that, I think one of the things, and United was really a leader in helping us talk about this, was let's not just look at what one organization can do, but are there some strategic partnerships where we can leverage different strengths from organizations. So for instance, kind of education needs and connected to job training. So the chamber is partnering with United Way and a couple other partners, nonprofits, to really see how to do better with high school kids, to have them have the skills that they need to get good paying jobs. And so that partnership didn't exist, a year ago.
And to me, that almost sounds like the reconciliation of the economic ramifications of this project with the social ramifications of it as well. The intersection of the two.
I have another example that I love, which we don't at United Way traditionally get involved in developing transportation systems. But there was a need that came out of the ECOS project, and it was certainly one that we'd been hearing about, and that Fletcher Allen, who's another big partner in ECOS, had been hearing around transportation, and in particular seniors and people with disabilities, trying to get to doctor's appointments, pharmacies, grocery stores. And what we ended up collectively developing is a new project that's just launched. It's called Neighbor Rides. And the role United Way is playing is to help recruit volunteers, because the nonprofit sector really is great about using the value and the skills of volunteers. So Neighbor Rides is a volunteer driver program that is embedded within the paratransit system. So we're working with SSTA, but we are recruiting volunteers, placing them with SSTA, and with the limited dollars that SSTA has to spend on providing this transportation, at a cost that's, you know, $60 a ride, can volunteer drivers reduce that cost to then spread the pool of money you do have farther? And so it's been fantastic, and that's I think, a case where you have infrastructure and sort of regional transportation needs intersecting with human service needs, and when we can actually work together and really create a solution.
I wanted to bring up just another point that the caller made, and that was again about infrastructure, particularly as it relates to transportation. Just in the latest series of storms that we've had, we saw some road damage throughout Chittenden County. We certainly saw it in Irene and when the rain came up from Sandy. Is this project taking into account the infrastructure damage that may occur from more frequent storms when we have limited resources? That's been a concern for me, that municipalities, I don't think, are necessarily preparing their budgets for what may in fact be coming in the next 25 years if climate change in fact is real.
Well, I think I hope we can agree that the changing climate is real.
I agree. I'm just out there, you know, people may say, you know.
Understood, but, and yeah, whatever the cause is, but, you know, we are certainly getting more frequent, you know, heavier damage from storms, lake flooding. So those, you know, I think there is the municipalities and the state and certainly at the Regional Planning Commission, we're supporting these efforts, are preparing. And actually, it's one of our major projects coming out of ECOS in the coming year, is really working with the state and the municipalities on how to do that best. You know, some of the techniques are known, but then it's really kind of getting it into the capital budgets and programs. So, and also being strategic about those investments that need to be made. You know, which are the culverts or roads that are most at risk? You know, if we do get a heavy rain, and we've thankfully actually done a lot of work in Chittenden County over the last few years. We have a pretty good read on where they are. We need to kind of screen them out a little bit. So we'll be working with each of the towns to really focus in on that, and with VTrans.
Oh, good.
And so that has been a big topic, as you can imagine, post-Irene, to really be better prepared, and also to start making investments and fixing things in advance. So we know where there are undersized culverts. And there's also, it's interesting, it's not just safety and infrastructure, it's also environmental. And there's aquatic organism passage standards that we look at also that come really from A&R, and it's really about water quality.
Well, and there's an economic component. When the Route 15 just washed out, I mean, there were a lot of people that couldn't get to work because they couldn't get there. So, I mean, again, I think all of this there's the intersection.
Well, so Martha, back to you for a second. The United Way is just so great at creating partnerships. Can you speak a little bit more about the things that UW is working on in advance of some of these goals, and maybe some of the partners that United Way is bringing to this as well?
Yep. Well, and I think that, again, we there's a movement in the country really around the buzzword is collective impact. And if we can really start to identify as a community what we want, whether it's around economic development or making sure that our kids are graduating from high school with the skills and the curiosity,
in the area
need. That there's an interconnection here. And so we've been doing a lot of work, again, with the Chamber, with the hospital, with Regional Planning Commission, with United Way, some other local foundations, Vermont Community Foundation, Fannie Allen Foundation, to really start to say, are there a couple of issues where we do feel like we all share the same, what do we want? And in particular around school to career, and how do we really work that? So I right now am the chair of the Winooski-Burlington Partnership for Change, which is a high school transformation effort. It was a grant that those two communities, school districts, got from the Nellie Mae Educational Foundation. So we're looking at what's it going to take to really have kids graduate with the competencies and proficiencies that they need to be successful in 21st century jobs, and citizenship, really. And I think we have a lot of interest from the local business community who are saying exactly what you pointed out. We are seeing kids that we can't find people.
Exactly.
And so how do we start to bridge that gap? So that's an area where we're, and it aligns very clearly with our education impact area. So we're doing that work. In the health arena, again, the transportation issues, a lot of the barriers to healthcare, it's not about the healthcare delivery system as much as it's about I can't get there. Interpreter services, we're starting to do some work around trying to get a better system in place around using language interpreters. There's certainly are some programs, but the credentialing that's required really for healthcare or legal interpreters can really get in the way. So that's work that we're doing right now. I can't help but not mention, because this is my thing these days, about the challenge all of our communities are having around heroin and substance abuse, and the impact that I believe that really is going to have on our economic development, on our neighborhoods, on our community safety. So that is one that, for me right now, is really front and center, and I'm trying to talk about it at every opportunity I can. So sorry, Charlie, but I wanted to just get that out there, because I think we have to be paying attention to these things. It's all very connected.
And so how is RPC actually building in these partnerships, Charlie?
Yeah, and you kind of get on this continuum, but yeah, so picking up from the health thing, I think one of the things is we look at kind of the longer term of how we build communities. We're looking a lot at healthy community design, which the walking and the biking, back to the bike path, and so we're the health department kind of joined in, really interested in that aspect and the access to healthy food. To really be on the preventative side, like let's not end up in the healthcare system.
Right.
Let's be healthier.
Right. And in a sense, that comes back to employers too.
So, and I was going to kind of get to the kind of which leads me into the economy and just our jobs and having healthy employees. And the education was one thing that came from employers. We interviewed a lot of employers in the region to really find out what their issues are. And some was around transportation infrastructure. And two that we're working on, that I think of more as a built environment that will take longer. One is housing, and the other one is, and maybe this one will be easier, is sites for manufacturing, industrial type employment. We really have pretty well run out of sites in Chittenden County for that kind of manufacturing type employment. So we're working on that with GBIC. But back to the housing, which is something which we really kind of heard from a variety of sectors.
It's one of my priorities.
Right, it's from United Way, but we heard it from employers that when they try to bring someone here for a job, the salary and the cost of housing doesn't pan out for that new employee, and they say, it's too expensive to have housing in Chittenden County, so I'm not going to take the job.
Well, I read a statistic that if it's an average $900 apartment and you're making $12 to $15 an hour, which is the average wage here in Chittenden County, that it would take 2.2 people working to afford that $900 apartment, and that is what you're talking about right there.
And it really is a big development challenge because, just at the first blush you kind of go, geez, I don't want any more development to happen, but if we're on this trend path, and this is a desirable place to live and work and play, we're going to have demand coming here, and so we really need to figure out, and I think we largely have figured out, but really work on implementing like Plan BTV.
I was just going to say, so Plan BTV and the Rail Yard Project, are they?
And that's really about getting more housing, downtown, or maybe where there isn't too much housing right now, and what we call infill. Let's take advantage of those opportunities. Or if I go around South Burlington working on their city center project, I mean, they're really looking at denser housing, with access to transit and sidewalks and bike paths, so people have transportation options, but we also have housing that doesn't displace farms further out. And it's a major challenge, and the really, I think, heartening thing for me in this conversation was how all of our municipalities are really very much on very similar pages, if not the same page, around that issue. They're all trying to direct development, encourage development within their villages, just as the city of Burlington is, whether it's Richmond or Heinsberg or Jericho. So we're helping them update their zoning, look at the infrastructure needed for that development to happen in those places.
Great. Well, this is our introductory show here, so what can we expect in the next episode of ECOS in Action?
So I think the next episode we really want to focus on the transportation, which we seem to not be able to avoid talking about anytime we talk about these issues, but Michelle Boomhauer, who's the MPO director at the Regional Planning Commission, will come and talk about the transportation projects that we have going more specifically, and maybe we'll bring in some other partners like Local Motion, and some folks like that to talk about the transportation actions that are going on.
Great, great. Interestingly, Chapin Spencer, the former executive director of Local Motion, has now been named as the director of Public Works, and I think that is a good thing for the city of Burlington. It starts to get the city thinking in alternate transportation modes, and Chapin might be able to help lead that, and I think it would actually support what the ECOS plan is all about.
A lot of alignment.
There absolutely is.
Martha, your final thoughts on United Way's involvement in the ECOS project and the opportunity it represents?
And I mean, I've just really said that some of the challenges we have in the community, it is not going to be solved. They are not going to be solved by the philanthropic sector alone or the nonprofit sector alone. These issues are really complex, and the solutions are really complex, and it is really imperative that we be working in partnership with others, because there's shrinking resources right now in the community and in the state and in the country, and so we have to become ever more strategic about using the resources we do have in a really aligned way, all working toward the same goals, and I think ECOS has really given us that roadmap.
Wonderful. Charlie, what do you need from the public who is watching here tonight? What do you need from them as you get ready to actually implement this plan?
Yeah, and I think you could, engage at a broader level, support City Council when they adopt a Plan BTV or the form-based codes that's going to follow in Burlington. Or even just at a more personal level. I mean, we talk about things, about energy retrofits and doing things to save energy and really free up your own cash in your house. So we're working on a home energy challenge right now that VEIC's supporting and working with municipalities to encourage that. So that's just one example of something you could do, at a homeowner level that is really aligned and helps support all the issues, reduce emissions, save money, do all the positive things we're trying to do.
Great, great. Well, Charlie Baker, Executive Director of the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, it's a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you very much.
Where can people get more information if they want it?
At our website, ecosproject.com.
Great. And Martha Maxim, Executive Director of United Way. It's
Thanks
a pleasure having you here tonight. And thank you both for the amount of work that you have put into this project, the countless hours and building these partnerships to make Chittenden County a better place for all residents to live in. If you'd like more information, again, the website is ecosproject.com, and we thank you for watching. We encourage you to stay tuned for more Channel 17 programming. I'm Matt Kelly. For all of us here at Channel 17, have a good night.
Thank you.